The day you were born is fixed, unchangeable fact. It is recorded on your birth certificate, and no matter how many years passes on, the date is set. You cannot change it, no matter how much you want to do that. Similarly, a variable declared with the final keyword is given a value that becomes permanent. In fact, once it has been assigned, the value is locked in for the good and cannot be changed for the rest of the life. In this video, we are going to discuss about what is final keyword, how it can be applicable for the variables, methods, and the classes. We are also going to look into the different live examples wherever it is applicable, along with the scenarios. This is undoubtedly the one of the most important interview questions which are normally asked in an interview. Final keyword in Java is a non-access modifier that when it is applied, making that particular entity unchanged and constant. So it can be used with the variables, with the methods, and the classes. Let me create one class over here for example purpose. Here I have created one class. In this, I am going to create one final int my final variable, and I'm going to assign it with some value. In this case, this is going to be the final variable. So once the value is assigned, you cannot change it. Let us try to write a main method. I moved this particular variable to a main method. Here I am trying to assign some value at the different to the one which has been initialized. If you see here, it is saying cannot assign a value to the final variable. This is what happens when you are working with variables. Once you have assigned the value, it cannot be changed. There are some rules you must follow to initialize the finable variable. At the time of the declaration or within the constructor instance variable, you can assign the value. If you are having a static initializing block, a static variable can be assigned over there. Once you assign, you cannot reassign it to the new value to the finable variables once it has been initialized. Let's show you an example of how you can actually initialize this value using the constructor. I'm going to create one final int age over here, and I'm not going to assign any value over here. So this is going to be the final instance variable. So this will be initialized in the constructor. What I will do, I will create a public constructor. Here I am going to pass the age. This dot age, I will assign it to this particular age over here. This is how using the constructor you can assign that particular final value to it. If I am defining one static variable, that is going to be again a final, I am defining pi, so this is going to be 3.14. Once assigned this particular pi value, if I go in this particular method and I try to change this particular to, let's say, 4.10, I'm just trying to comment this particular thing here to showcase you what exactly it denotes. If you see here, the final static variable which is assigned here, once it has been assigned, it is not allowing to change. It is again saying that you cannot assign that particular value to it. So this is going to demonstrate that the final variables are not reassignable. So you cannot reassign them. So this is going to give you a compile time error. So same is with the instance variable. If you let me allow you to show you an example with the instance variable, I'm going to create one normal method over here. Inside this, if I am trying to assign some value, you see here, I'm not allowed to assign it here because it will not be allowing to reassign that particular value. So here it is going to automatically take it from the constructor, as we had not assigned any value over here. So you will not be able to do that. The things that you cannot do, first is you cannot reassign the value to a new value. If a final variable is an object reference, you cannot change the reference to point it to some new object. However, the state of this particular object itself can be changed if it is a mutable. Let's say it is a list. If you are creating a custom object with some public getters and setters, in that case you can do that. Let us take an example. Here in the main method, what I'm trying to do, I'm going to create a final list. I'm going to create a string, my final list. I will assign the value over here. Now this is a final list over here. My final list, I'm trying to add something over here. One, same, I'm trying to add some value as a second. This is allowed here. This is going to modify the elements over here inside the list. But let's say my final list is equal to the new array list. If I'm trying to do this, you cannot do this, because this is again going to reassign the new object to it. You can only change the state of the mutable objects like the list, but you cannot reassign that particular value, because this is going to be the final. Let us discuss about the most common use cases of final variable. In the real world scenario, you have a mathematical constant. We already discussed about the pi. So this is declared as a final static variable. It is going to ensure its value cannot be accidentally changed or maliciously changed by someone. If you take an example of the configuration value, setting a final variable, let's say you have a database connection string, the path, the timeout duration. Let's say the final is max timeout is 30 seconds. So you cannot change that particular value. We have enum members. Enum members in Java are implicitly final and static. They represent a fixed set of constants, like you have days of the week or set of the status code. That is where it is implicitly final and static. You are using the final calculations. So if you are storing some interest rate, if your tax rate in a final variable, it does not change during the calculation time. We are going to discuss about the final method. A final method is a method that cannot be overridden by the subclass. In Java, we have the parent classes, we have the child classes. The child class is going to extend and implement its own functionality, which is going to be the custom. In case of the final methods, the declaration would look like this. If you are going to define a public final void and my final method. So this is how you create your own final method, which is going to be in the base class. So this is going to be the base class, and then you can write your own functionality over here. I'm going to create one example to showcase you what I'm trying to denote. As per the rules of final method, the final method can still be inherited by the subclass, but it is implementation cannot be changed. So this is very useful if you want to prevent some unwanted modification of your base method or a method behavior in your subclass. So you want to use it as it is provided in the superclass, no modification done. In that case, we can make use of this particular final method in the parent class. Now I'm going to create one parent class. Inside that, I'm going to copy this particular same method, whatever I've just created over here as a final method. So I'm writing this particular final method. I'm trying to print some value over here. parent email class. Here I am going to write a child class which is going to extend the parent class. If you see here, I am trying to override this particular same method over here, but you see you cannot override this final method in this particular child class because this is declared as final. If I remove this particular value, you will be able to see that I have to mark this particular thing as override over here. Now this is crying because I have named this particular file as parent over here, and then it is asking would you change this particular name to the child. So this is okay, but here the significance or the importance of this is that here if it is overriding, it is allowing here because I have removed this. Now let's say if I go back, if I don't override it and I keep that particular final, this is going to again cry saying that you cannot override this. Now this is the behavior with the final methods. So once the final method has been declared in the super class or a parent class, the final method cannot be overridden in the subclass. So this is how you can use it. Now where do we use this particular final methods? What are the use cases? Preventing the overriding of for security and the consistency purpose, we make use of this particular final method as a final. If you go, let's say, let's discuss about these scenarios. You have a template method design pattern. A final method can be defined a template specific or a specific sequence of steps that a subclass must follow. Example, you have a base processor, you have a final variable method that is an execute my payment. Now that are going to be the several abstract methods like validate card, charge card. The sequence is fixed, but subclass is going to provide a specific implementation for its each step. So in that case, it is going to stop that. API security, a library or a framework might provide a base class with a final method that perform the critical security checks, the key lifecycle operation. This method is going to used by the developers, and the developer we should not accidentally or maliciously bypass these steps by overriding this. So this is going to give you a security aspect as well, where it will not allow you to override that particular core logic. Now, core logic in framework, we have a method that is going to manage the state of a framework, a library that must be marked as a final. So it is going to prevent the developer from breaking the framework, is going to be the internal or the core logic of it. So that is where actually we can make use of the final methods. Finally, we are going to discuss about the final class. A class is final that cannot be inherited by the other classes. So once you declare a class as final, it cannot be inherited by the other classes. Declaration wise, we'll look into this particular code. Example wise, I'm going to create one class, my final class example. Here I'm going to declare this as a final class. If you see, this is the syntax. We can applicable with the class level over here. Earlier we had discussed about the variables and the method level. Now this is the class level. So the rules are no other classes can extend or this particular final class. If example, I'm going to create another class, my subclass. If I'm trying to extend the my final class, you will be able to see that you cannot inherit it from the final class over here. This compile time error is thrown, so you will not be able to use this particular class in your own implementation, or you cannot take the behavior whatever it is there from the superclass. No other classes can extend it. All the methods in this particular classes are going to be implicitly final because they cannot be overridden anyway at all, right? So in that case, this is going to be implicitly final. Final classes are often used for the security reason. It is going to ensure that the integrity of your class implementation is safe. If you have heard of the class string, then if you see, I will just open it for you. If I go here and if I open the string class, let's say if I'm defining, let's say, a string class, if you take this particular class, this is under the lang. If you check at this particular syntax, it is same, it is final. So you cannot subclass even from final as well. So if you try to subclass this string over here, you will not be able to do that as well. See here, from the final class. So this is going to restrict it from implementation, having that particular extending and then implementing it. So this will give you a compile time error. So the inheriting of the final class is impossible. So that is the reason we make use of this final class. Making a final class is one of the important in creating the immutable class, because it is going to prevent any subclass from changing its internal behavior or a state. If you are taking about the real world scenario, we already discussed the string class is class final. This is going to be a very, very critical aspect with respect to the design, because in this it is going to ensure there is a security, the predictability of the string objects, which is used everywhere across your application. If string were not final, it could have been very maliciously, you can subclass that particular class and override its methods like equals and the hash code, and there can be a cause of an unexpected behavior over there. You have some utility methods like classes that is going to set some static helper methods. If you have taken example of math class, if you take this, this is again, if you see, this is again a final. So this is going to be used often. These classes are final, or if you have some private constructor which is going to be used over there, so it will stop you from initializing or subclassing it. Take a look at this particular mat class. This is as marked as a final class. Now if you go take a look at this, this is got a private constructor over here. So this is going to make use of the constructor to prevent instantiation, making it utility class final and another way to achieve using the final. Security aspect or security sensitive classes, you can actually have some cryptographic functionality, database connections, or file IO operations which are made using the final. So it is going to prevent your subclassing. Also, it is going to keep everything original so that everybody who is going to implement that can trusted that particular implementation how it is, and there is no scope of manipulation. Let us take a look at the versions which has been Java been upgraded. So if you compare with Java 5 till Java 24 till date, there has been lot of features has been added up. There are quite a little bit changes or more changes has been added to the Java version. There was one features, that is Java records, which are of new type of class. This is designed to have a transparent carrier for an immutable data. Now they are implicitly final, meaning you cannot extend this particular records. This is going to be the new applications for the final concept in the new language feature, but it does not change how final itself was traditionally behaving with respect to the classes. There were some minor changes, but that is not going to be directly changing related to the final keyword. So in sum up, the final keyword is going to operate today in the same way how it is to do in the Java 5. So changes has been is respect to the new language features like Lambda, other records, but the final concept is exactly the same, and it is going to be the core functionality itself. That's all from this particular video. If this video has given you some value, please give us a thumbs up. Also check out my channel page where I have uploaded lot of Java, Spring Boot, microservices related video along with the interview related questions. If this video was helpful, please share it with the needy people. Also don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon. Thank you for watching.